Chapter 101 Max vs. Elyon, 2, you are listening at novelfull.audio. With 50% of his HP being shaved off, Elyon was forced on the defensive while facing Max. The tournament did not allow the use of potions for recovery, which meant that without having a healing spell or special skill in one's arsenal, recovery through external means was impossible. Unfortunately for Elyon, he had no healing abilities under his belt, which caused him to proceed with extreme caution. He had walked into the battle with an advantage, however, with one strong attack landing by Max, the tide of the battle changed completely. Fireball, fireball, fireball. Max finally switched from his close combat attacking form, to his long-range abilities as he began spamming fireballs from range at Elyon. Wind Wall. Elyon blocked the incoming barrage, using a wind wall, but he had an ugly expression on his face when he realized that the Hound had long-range spells under his belt but chose not to use them in battle up till now. Max began running in circles around Elyon, spamming fireballs at a high speed, and although Elyon blocked all of them perfectly, he was pinned right at the center of Max's attacks as Max progressively circled closer and closer. Does he have infinite mana? He has already spammed 100 fireballs. Elyon thought, as Max showed no signs of slowing while he kept circling in. Bind. Elyon, watching Max's footwork closely, decided to find the most opportune moment to use Bind, as he trapped Max's legs mid-movement. Vines emerged from under the arena ground and constricted around Max's feet, as Max had to use his upper body strength to make sure that he did not fall off and hit the floor face first. Twin-headed flamethrower. Elyon unhesitatingly used his strongest attack, and Max met his fire with his own as he used the attack, Fireblast. Boom! Fire met fire and created an explosion, much to the delight of the fans in attendance, as Max's Fireblast gave the twin-headed flamethrower a tough fight, slowing the power and intensity of the attack by a large margin, before dissolving into nothingness and letting it pass. Flames covered Max completely, and for a second Max panicked a little, but it was only for a second, as when the heat of the flames bounced harmlessly across his skin, he grinned and gripped his sword as he jumped from amidst the flames towards Elyon. Max jumped high and emerged from the flames of twin-headed flamethrower, looking like a blazing meteorite, as he descended upon Elyon with Bloodsucker ready to strike. 550. Max's Bloodsucker slashed Elyon's gut, with the mage not teleporting out of harm's way fast enough as he looked at the unharmed Max with wide eyes, the shock of seeing his best attack fail so miserably causing him some psychological damage. The flames around Max's robes died down, and his HP bar remained unmoved as he emerged as a god of fire from the flames, untouched and unhurt, much to the delight of the crowd. Holy shit, that was so cool. How is he unhurt after that attack? Hahaha, the way he jumped from amidst the flames and went down for the strike gave me goosebumps. I thought it was game over when he was bound, but what a comeback by the Hound. Does Elyon even have another attack spell left in his arsenal? If Max has such high fire resistance, then isn't he a tiger without claws in this fight? Handsome bitch, he's my husband, so keep your lustful eyes to yourself. Also stop wetting the seats, it's disgusting. Keep your own hands out of your pants before telling me, bitch. Max began swinging his sword in the air for show, catering to the cheering crowd as he hopped lazily towards his enemy, who seemed to be bewildered of Max. Why you? Fight me like a man. Elyon roared, disgusted at seeing Max's casualness over the fight and his disrespectful attitude. I'm fighting you like a man, old man Elyon. It's you who is running away from me. Stop going back. Let's exchange some fists like a man. Max replied with a mocking tone. Elyon only realized that he was running away from Max subconsciously, with him retreating 2 steps with every step that Max hopped. Twin-headed flamethrower. Elyon tried his signature attack once more, but Max simply evaded it using a body roll, then kept hopping towards him. Twin-headed flamethrower, dodge. Twin-headed flamethrower, dodge. Elyon began panting hard. His stamina as well as mana reserves showed signs of drying up under the stress as he was at his wit's end on how to fight Max. Fireblast, Wind Wall. The Wind Wall barely blocked Max's Fireblast, however, Elyon's mana reserves hit the absolute bottom with this defense deployed. Fireblast. Max, knowing full well that his opponent had reached his limit, used another fireblast, as Elyon tried to conjure another wind wall but failed in doing so. 1500 Elyon was burnt hard by the fireblast, and his HP reduced to dangerously red levels, as he was sprawled on the floor in front of Max. Surrender. Max asked in a calm voice. He did not wish to pursue this match anymore. No, I'll leave. .3599 critical hit. Max was not interested in hearing any speeches after the no, as he immediately impaled his sword in Elyon's throat to send him to the afterlife. The referee stepped in and raised Max's hand as he announced the result of the matchup. The winner of this match, via complete death kill, Raven. Hound, 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 hound. Max raised his hand in victory, as the crowd chanted the hound chant to motivate him. Max turned to look at his brother and sister in law, who were politely clapping at his victory, and smiled a bright smile under his mask. Brother looks proud, Max thought, completely misreading his brother's emotions at the moment. Walking off the stage with swagger, Max moved on to the round of 32, completely oblivious of his brother's rant about his disappointing performance in the second half of the fight. Chapter 102 Harsh Reality. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Rudra's POV. Rudra was smiling on the surface, but under the breath he was cursing at Max. What an absolute idiot, who runs in circles around the enemy. Of course you will be caught up in the bind spell unless your enemy is a retard. Rudra complained to Naomi, don't be so hard on the kid and just shut up and clap. He won in the end, did he not? Naomi said as she told Rudra off. How can my own brother be such an idiot? I wonder who is the combat professor in this college. I think I need to have a talk about the quality of education in this institution. Rudra muttered angrily, it's the principal, sir. He's actually done Max a solid by giving him a special pass into this tournament as a reward for his hard work. You should thank him if you meet him. Max says he is an inspirational figure for him. Naomi replied. Rudra was dumbfounded by his wife's knowledge about Max's life as he asked, how do you know all of this? Naomi smiled evilly as she looked towards Rudra and said, oh, he writes to me every now and then. I send him pictures of Jake and Amy. He tells me about his life at uni. Why? Does he not write to you too? Rudra's face blackened at this answer as he realized that his brother was more in touch with his wife than him. That little foo ********. Rudra cursed with all his heart. Meanwhile Max returned to his locker room and had a healer inspect him for injuries. The healer looked low-key impressed when she found not a single point of HP to heal on Max, as she praised him and even touched his chest a little too intimately while speaking in a sweet voice. She was hitting on Max, and Max was unquestionably enjoying it, but unfortunately the party was interrupted by Asiva, who barged into Max's locker room. Ahem, she coughed sternly, looking at the healer run her fingers over Max's chest as the healer frowned and moved away. Good match. She praised Max, however, her voice was laced with an icy tone. Yeah, someone told me to crush it, so I did. Max replied jokingly, trying to lighten her mood, oh yes, I'm sure you would have crushed it in here if I did not visit. Asiva rebuked, not pulling back her shot at all. Rude. The healer glared at Asiva before walking out of the room. Bitch, Asiva shouted the moment she left. Fufu, ha ha ha. Max began laughing uncontrollably at Asiva's antics. Asiva looked at the laughing Max, as she barely stifled her laughter and said, idiot. Max's laughter only became even more uncontrollable after that, as his infectious laugh made Asiva laugh too. What is it with you and women? Playboy. Asiva complained, but there was no aggression in her voice anymore. What can I say, the mask adds to my mystery. Max said, proudly, you look much better without it. Asiva said, snorting, ho ho, are you flirting with me? Max asked cheekily. However, Asiva poured cold water on him with her cold reply as she said, in your dreams, playboy. Max clicked his tongue after that reply, and surrendered. He wanted to move on from the topic. The two sat side by side, as they chilled and watched the ongoing matches on the screen, waiting for a few matches to go by so that Anna and Sebastian would go up. Sebastian was up in the 17th match, and Anna in the 21st, and it took a full 2 hours before Sebastian was up for the fight. Sebastian's opponent was a Tier 1 tank called Darren. However, the poor guy was absolutely no match for Sebastian, as despite the shield to block his enemies' attacks, and his high HP, he could only manage a 5 minutes 10 seconds fight against Sebastian, which he lost miserably without ever landing a single attack. From start to finish, it was a one-sided trashing, and throughout the match, a drunk Thor could be heard shouting, "Attaboy!" and "That's my son," from the crowd. The crowd's perception of Sebastian took a 180 once it was revealed that he was Thor's son, as everyone quickly began cheering for him. Many high-level selectors took note of Sebastian as a potential recruit, as apart from his own skill in battle, recruiting him would open a gateway for the organization to build connections with the Thunder Kingdom. Max was slightly shocked to see Thor so vocal in supporting his child, as the camera angle cut multiple times mid-fight to show the Thunder God. While Max admired Thor's muscles, Asiva frowned deeply looking at the 4 naked women surrounding him, as she was instantly disgusted by the debaucherous douchebag. Match 21st saw Anna take on Emily, a paladin-class player whose preferred weapon of choice was a mallet. It was a close fight, and Anna was at a disadvantage by facing a class that was defense-based, and it was this narrow disadvantage that led her to lose in an arduous and long battle that lasted 24 minutes. Max genuinely felt sad for Anna when he saw her shedding a slight tear on her way back to the dressing room, as he felt the harsh reality of the tournament finally set in. Max had been lucky in round 1 to have an opponent who used fire as his main attack, otherwise he would have been hard-pressed to win. Such luck would not always be in his favor, and with so many strong opponents in the tournament, a single mistake could cost him the match. Under such circumstances, the only thing he could do for Anna was to make sure that he went on to the next rounds with caution, and if by chance he met Emily, then return the defeat faced by his friend to avenge her. /////A/N. Bonus chapter for hitting the GT target. We are on a roll, /////. Chapter 103 Round of 32. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Fighters were not allowed to meet outsiders during the duration of the tournament, which is why the 32 fighters who had advanced to round 2 spent the night in their isolated locker room area, under supervision of the university staff and professors. The matchups for the next day had been decided, and luckily, Max, Asiva and Sebastian did not have each other as their opponents in the next round. Max's opponent was a guy named Knight, and he was a necromancer by profession. Just like Max's dark shaman class, the art of necromancy was also heavily looked down upon by the light faction people, which was evident in their blatant hate and disgust for Knight during his fight. He was booed like he was the plaque, and despite displaying superb fighting skills he was not appreciated by a single fan in the crowd. Looking at his fight, Max had felt slightly depressed, as Grandpa Drax reminded him that it was most likely going to become Max's future should his class or race be made public. Knight too showed no restraint in disregarding the disrespectful fans, as he showed them all the middle finger on his way out. Apart from that, Knight was an excellent fighter. He was at level 102, having newly crossed into the Tier 2 realm, and was extremely creative in his attack pattern. He had 2 important summoning spells, Skeletal Summon and Skeletal Archer Summon, where he could summon 5 of each at a time. His summons were relatively weak, at only level 45, however, the sheer number made up for the lack of quality. His strategy involved flooding his enemy with skeletal troops, while he and the archers aimed from distance. He had 2 long-range attack spells that he used in his fight against his opponent in round of 64, which was Darkness Blast and Mana Drain. Both were troublesome spells to deal with, bringing his overall combat potential to extremely dangerous. Max spent his night calmly recalling his opponent's fight, his moves and patterns, as he discussed with Drax about the potential ways to counter the attacks. Asiva had Emily as her opponent, and she was super motivated to avenge Anna's defeat, whereas Sebastian had Roy Kingsman as his. Max was low-key jealous of Sebastian's luck, as if there was one weakest fighter in the round of 32, it was undoubtedly Roy Kingsman. Sebastian had it easy in this round, with him being a 20-1 favorite to win. The next day, the first fight of day 2 saw Sebastian absolutely obliterate Roy Kingsman in a record 2 minutes 14 seconds squash. It was the university record for the shortest match in round of 32, as Roy Kingsman was man-handled by Sebastian throughout the fight. From start to finish, Sebastian cursed Roy for the despicable kill in round 1, as after every sword strike he landed, he would ask Roy if he could sleep without the comfort of having other men in his bed last night. It was a character assassination as well as a physical mauling, as even Thor was left speechless by his son's aggression after the fight. Thor even jokingly said he fights like there's a demon inside him, not knowing that there actually was one. Match number 7 saw Asiva take on Emily, as the two fought in a high-speed battle. Asiva had the same disadvantage as Anna in this fight, as her class was not suited to fight defense-based opponents, but straight from the get-go she established her dominance and controlled the tempo of the fight. The mallet of Emily was too slow to catch the agile Asiva, who weaved through her strikes with ease, applying little damage with every strike. In a 15 minutes high-paced battle that saw both contestants strain their stamina bar, Asiva eventually managed to walk out the victor, as she landed the last strike with a verbal shout of "For Anna." It was an extremely satisfying moment for Max, as he saw Asiva win for Anna, avenging her defeat as he felt fired up for his fight. Max's fight was number 13, as he walked down to the arena to the deafening roar of the crowd. Ednel.co. As usual, Max looked up to the stands to look at her brother and sister. In law, however, to his dismay it was only his sister. In law standing in the stands today, as his brother was nowhere to be seen. Max clicked his tongue, but accepted this reality easily. His brother was a busy god with many responsibilities back on Earth, and could naturally not be here to witness his fights every single day. Good luck. His opponent said as he stared into Max's blood-red eyes. Bad luck. Max replied with a cheeky voice. Max was a frank guy, he did not want to wish his opponent luck, hence he did not put up hypocritical appearances of doing so. He wished him misery, so that's exactly what he said. Max extended his hand, but Knight refused to shake it after Max's comment, as the crowd booed him even more vehemently for not showing sportsmanship. On the referee's instructions, the duo walked off to the white spots and prepared to engage. Fight. As soon as the two took positions and faced each other, the referee started the fight as Max charged towards Knight straight from the get-go. Summon Skeletal Warrior. Knight raised his bone staff, and 5 hideous and smelly skeletons raised their heads from the ground, as they stood up around Knight in a defensive formation. Fireblast. Max unleashed Fireblast in hopes of blasting the front skeletons away, but Knight was on guard as he immediately responded with a Darkness Blast of his own to nullify Max's attack. HISSS. As fire met darkness, instead of an explosion, smoke arose rapidly from the clash, as within seconds the entire fighting arena was covered in gray smoke. The hell? Max panicked. He had not planned for this. He was surprised to see the smoke rising from the attack as much as the rest of the audience. /////A/N. This bonus chapter is sponsored by Cervantes 91 through Patreon ////. Chapter 104, Turning Slaves Against Masters. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Calm down, boy, let your primal senses take over. The unknown is more advantageous to you than it is for him. Drax said inside Max's head, as he tried to calm Max down. What should I do right now, Grandpa? I can't see shit. Max asked Drax for advice. Of course you brainwash those 5 skeletons that your enemy has summoned, but don't ask them to attack him, just get them under control and wait for the archers to spawn. When you have all 10 troops under your command, then go for the attack. Max listened to Drax's plan carefully, and everything that the old AI said made perfect sense to him. However, there was one slight problem. Grandpa Drax, I understood everything else, but how the hell am I supposed to find the skeletons if I can't see shit? Drax sighed, sometimes he wished the boy's satiety was below 60%, because when his mind was conscious, Max was a Fiat driver in a Ferrari car. Close your eyes, trust your senses and listen. You will hear the rattling of bones and the breath of your enemy. Since your vision is impaired, use your other senses. Drax suggested. Max closed his eyes, and tried to focus on his surrounding smell and sound. He could hear his enemy speaking in a low voice to his troops, something along the line of "spread out and stay vigilant," and he could also hear the soft cracking sounds of knuckles about 15 meters to his slight left. Max walked with pressure under his feet, gripping the ground tight and making sure to not make a slight sound as he approached the first skeleton and used brainwash. Luckily it was a success on the first try and Max was able to get the skeleton under his control. Just like Drax asked him, he commanded the skeleton to act like he was the enemy, but he deliberately asked him to miss all his attacks if they engaged. Max repeated this process over the next 2 minutes as he located all 5 skeletons, one by one, and managed to control them all. The crowd's anticipation grew louder and louder the longer the smoke lasted, and a full 3 minutes after the explosion caused by the fireblast and darkblast collision, the smoke started to clear out. Summon skeletal archers. The moment the smoke cleared, Knight summoned the skeletal archers. Skeletal warriors, charge. The skeletal warriors charged towards Max with their bone swords, while the skeletal archers began shooting towards Max from long range. The crowd became angry at the despicable numbers game tactic used by Knight, as this was exactly how he had won round 1. Everyone expected Max to have a hard time, but much to the crowd and Knight's surprise, Max weaved through the attack pattern of the skeletal warriors and the projectiles with unbelievable fluidity as not a single strike managed to land on Max. In reality, the skeletal warriors were missing the attacks deliberately, whereas Max was actually dodging the arrows. Max's complete focus was on the projectiles hearing his way, and just dodging the 5 arrows alone took almost all his skill. However, to the audience it seemed like he was dodging through a series of unbelievable attacks, as even Thor had a blank expression on his face looking at the way Max was weaving through attacks. The crowd erupted in cheers for Max, as some people literally pulled their hair in excitement over seeing Max's skill. I heard that the Hound spends 6 hours daily inside the gravity chamber dodging projectiles. This must be the reason why he can move like a god. Unbelievable, the Hound is more agile than a cat. What a freak. Awesome. Max slowly made his way near a skeletal archer as he acted like he wanted to hit it, but instead he used brainwash on it instead as he slowly manipulated the skeletal archers one by one. Dark Blast, 0.1500 HP. Just as Max had manipulated the third skeletal archer, he was hit by a Dark Blast from Knight as the attack sent Max flying through the arena as he landed hard on his back. Fuck, Max groaned as he stumbled to his feet. He had become too focused on manipulating the skeletal archers that he forgot that Knight himself was a threat. Gritting his teeth, Max became angry as he pointed towards a skeletal archer that was not under his control and used the spell Fireblast. 0.1200. Max turned one skeletal archer to dust and then proceeded to do it to another, as he looked coldly towards Knight afterwards. Enough is enough. Max shouted, and all the skeletal warriors stopped attacking him, as they turned towards Knight in hostility in a major turn of events. Skeletons. Attack. Knight commanded, however none of his troops moved. Skeletons, attack. He said once more, this time with a hint of surprise in his voice. I said attack. He said once more, panic creeping into his voice. Knight looked at Max and said, mana drain. Knight was sure that Max had used some hidden mana-based skill to manipulate the skeletons. However, his mana drain failed completely when it hit Max, as Max had no mana in the first place. What, how? Knight panicked when his skill failed, as his own skeletal warriors began matching towards him. The entire crowd was confused as to what the fuck was going on, but whatever it was, seeing the skeletons turn on their master, everyone seemed to be happy. Pointing towards Knight, Max commanded coldly, kill him. The archers began shooting towards their master, and the skeletal warriors charged towards Knight, as the crowd erupted into an unprecedented pop seeing the slaves stab their own master. "Stop this, it's I who summoned you." Knight shouted, then pleaded, but it was to no avail. His servants were no longer his own, but had a new master controlling them. 240.200.90.70.60. 230.40. A series of notifications rang, as an absolutely mauling of the necromancer began. Chapter 105. The One Nights. You are listening at novelfull.audio. "Time to end this fight," Max said as he looked at the struggling knight. Fireblast. Max used the most opportune moment as Knight was trying to fight one of the skeletal warriors to blast him with a Fireblast. 2300. The Fireblast reduced Knight's HP to a dangerous red level, and although it also damaged some of the skeletal warriors who were hitting Knight, with the next two skeletal arrows hitting their mark, it was night time for Knight. 249.170. Knight's HP hit 0, as the match was over with Max standing tall. The audience went wild when Knight was eventually defeated, as Max became the new hero in town. The referee swooped in as soon as the match ended and raised Max's arm in glory. The winner of this match, by a complete death kill. Raven. Asterisk Hound. 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 Hound, asterisk. The hound chants erupted and there were some wolf howls mixed in between as Max walked down the stage in pride. Just before he walked out, he turned once to wave to his sister-in-law Naomi, to thank her for being here to support him today. With this victory Max had solidified his dream of entering the round of 16, and hence secured his spot in the upcoming dungeon run. Meanwhile Rudra had to leave Max's academy in a hurry as he was summoned by none other than Augustus One Night, the Tier 8 patriarch of the One Night clan, in an emergency family meeting. It was the first time that Rudra was going to the One Night territory and he was shocked at the honor and respect he got once he reached there, as every single clan member worshipped him as if he were the second coming of Jesus Christ himself. Sometimes I forget that I'm now a god. Rudra chuckled as he thought to himself as he blessed a few kids who seemed to seek his blessings in becoming a warrior like him in the future. The One Night territory was extremely prosperous, with their home planet being 7 times the size of Earth. The capital city was almost as big as Europe and housed over 220 million inhabitants, and the total population of the planet being over 27 billion. However, when Rudra sent his senses across the world, he realized that despite the large population there were only 2 gods on the entire planet. Rudra was escorted into a huge castle made of pure sapphires as his dear sister Patricia One Night greeted him at the palace gates. "Shakuni," she said with a smile, "big sister." Rudra replied with a bigger one. The One Night clan name was not inherited at birth, but rather Augustus One Night devised a system thousands of years ago, for choosing the next generation of One Night clansmen. Each previous generation of One Night clansmen could take in one junior brother or sister and groom them personally. Upon passing the Tier 4 trial, if they fulfilled the hidden criterias, then they were awarded the family name. Patricia had named Rudra as her successor, and Rudra had not yet passed the name on to anyone else. This system meant that the One Night clan members were not related by blood, but still shared a close familiar bond. But despite having no blood relations, all One Nights shared the same blue eyes, because it was a secret family technique called Eyes of Truth that was devised by Augustus One Night himself. It was this technique that made the One Night family the powerhouse they were today, and the reason that Augustus One Night managed to reach the heights of Tier 8 in his lifetime. "Sweet palace," Rudra said as Patricia walked past rhodium crystal scriptures as if it were glass. "If you want the throne, I'm more than happy to give it to you, my Tier 7 brother," Patricia said with a smile as Rudra missed a step and almost stumbled to the floor. "How did you find out?" Rudra asked, shocked as Patricia smiled and said, "At Tier 6, my senses are not strong enough to cover the entire planet, but I felt yours envelope it whole." Rudra bowed respectfully in front of his big sister. His Tier 7 ascension was the closest guarded secret of Earth. Rudra had not even told Naomi that he had managed to ascend not more than a week ago, as he suppressed all signs of his power-up to not let any opposing force get a whiff of his true potential. "Don't worry, your secret is safe with me and the Patriarch brother," Patricia said as Rudra nodded solemnly. If there was one place in the universe that he could not act impudently, it was this planet. Rudra owed a lot of his success to the unconditional backing of the One Night family, as even today it was not his own name that deterred troublesome forces from messing with Earth, as much as the One Night behind his name did. Eventually Rudra and Patricia walked into an only red room made of rubies in the entire Emerald Palace, as Rudra saw a vibrant old man sitting in front of a chess table all by himself. "Ak, Shikuni One Night, my boy, come have a game with me," Augustus said with an energetic tone behind his voice. "Greetings, Patriarch." Rudra replied, as he took his position across from the Patriarch. Within the next 3 seconds, the two made a total of 80 moves which resulted in Rudra eventually winning. "Checkmate," Rudra said as Augustus One Night began clapping, amused at how Rudra had lured his bishop in only for it to be a decoy to take his queen. "Cheeky," Augustus said as he reset the table as he began pondering about the previous game and where he made a mistake. "You called Patriarch?" Patricia asked, her voice containing a trace of concern, as not only had Augustus recalled Rudra on a forceful command, but also asked Patricia to prepare the troops for war. Currently, the purchase of weapons and production of potions and supplies was at an all-time high inside the territory. Mines were working past capacity, and blacksmiths were being recruited by the thousands. Augustus sighed. He seemed to have aged 5 years as he tried to answer Patricia's question as he said, "The reason why I called you here, my children, is because / bonus chapter for hitting the Power Stone's target, good job everyone. / Chapter 106 A Dreaded Lot. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Max's POV. Cold water was poured on Max's victory celebrations as the format of the round of 16 was revealed. From the round of 16 till the finals, the next day was going to be a non-stop battle royale with only a small 5-minute break between each consecutive round. The lots had been drawn and Max had Sebastian as his opponent in the round of 16, with the winner of the match having a probability of facing Asiva straight after the battle in the quarter-finals should she win her match as well. The three of them sat in absolute silence, cursing the luck of the draw, as they realized that of them would be eliminated tomorrow one way or the other, and that was the best-case scenario. The worst-case scenario would be that all three of them were eliminated. "We knew this was coming sooner or later. There will be no love lost, guys, let's just give it our all and try to win," Sebastian said as he tried to cheer the group. However, while Asiva nodded, Max was completely still as his mind was in a slight disarray. Asiva felt that Max was bothered by the thought of fighting his friends and tried to console him in private that it was okay. All of them made it to the round of 16 and secured their spots as students who would be sent to the Dragon's Paradise, and that the win was not as important. However, she had completely misunderstood Max's emotions today, as the reason why Max was quiet today was not because he was hesitant in fighting Sebastian the next day, rather the opposite, as Max was shockingly unaffected by the thought of fighting his friend. When Max thought about punching Sebastian right in his face, or using some underhanded trick to win the fight, he did not feel any sort of shame or guilt at all, and this feeling bewildered him a little. Max had started noticing this ever since he had transformed into a vampire, that his perception of humans and lives had changed significantly. However, he never felt the effects of his inhuman nature until today. When Max was running missions in the Red Hand group as an E-ranked mercenary, he had often seen shady things happen on the street. Witnessing everything from rape, murder, theft, Max saw everything and remained aloof. If it were the human Max, he would have felt pity for the victim. However, the vampire Max was just wired differently, as the only thought he had when he saw a guy getting stabbed was how pungent his blood smelt. At that time Max was a little alarmed, but he had let the incident slide off, thinking maybe he was cold to people he did not care about, and it was a good trait in his opinion. But today, as he sat strategizing about tomorrow's battle against Sebastian, he realized that even for a friend like Sebastian, Max felt no guilt at the thought of hurting him badly. Grandpa Drax, what's happening to me? Max asked, slightly worried at the inhuman monster he was turning into. However, Drax explained very calmly that this was the most natural instinct of a primordial warrior. Boy, in ancient times, clansmen, brothers and even enemies fought fair and square for the right to be called chief. They could be blood brothers, but for the right to be chief they would fight each other with all their strength and not hold back. It was a matter of pride and honor. However, the same fighters would unite against an external enemy and fight shoulder to shoulder with blind trust in each other to cover their backs. This fight is no different from a fight to become the chief, and your primal bloodline does not let you feel shame for it. Max felt a little better from Drax's explanation as he reluctantly dropped his worries and began seriously planning on how to fight against Sebastian the next day. Sebastian was at level 115, he was extremely strong, agile and a demi-god with excellent battle awareness. He was exactly like Max in the fighter's mindset, but better in terms of stats and skills, as unlike Max he was not obsessed with stat maximization and focused on leveling up while improving the proficiency of his skills instead. He had two lethal skills that he had displayed in the tournament so far, which were 1000 sword cuts and sword dash. However, Max, knowing him personally, knew that these were the two skills he had chosen as he advanced to Tier 1 while his stronger Tier 2 skills were still hidden. It was not at all a stretch to say that Max had found his strongest opponent yet in Sebastian, as the guy was a balanced warrior with no obvious flaws for him to exploit. In their group, everyone knew that Sebastian was the strongest warrior of the four, and although Max's unconventional means made him a great asset in team battles and real-world scenarios, 1 versus 1, Max was much weaker when compared to Sebastian. Despite knowing this reality, Max was actually fired up to face Sebastian instead of cursing his luck, as somewhere deep down in Max's DNA, something urged him to fight a real man's fight. Max's mind was clear, he was not going to hold back in tomorrow's battle at all, as despite his opponent being stronger than him, Max was going to pull all the stops necessary for him to win. Upon Drax's instruction, Max did not drink blood to increase his satiety before the fight, as taking a gamble Max decided to walk into the battle next day with his satiety index at 68%. Meanwhile Sebastian, damn it, why am I feeling nervous when facing a brat? Asmodeus thought to himself as he felt his body shiver at the thought of facing Max. I don't actually care about those kids, I'm only with them because there is strength in numbers. I don't actually like them. I doubt I'll crush my friends if they stand in my path. Asmodeus said, confused at the language coming out of his mouth as he realized that he referred to Max as his friend subconsciously. Damn, that brat's soul has weakened me. I have become pathetic. Asmodeus cursed as he clicked his tongue. // bonus chapter as my gratitude for the support you all have shown me this month. Thank you everyone, // Chapter 107 Round of 16 You're listening at novelfull.audio. Rudra returned to the university late at night, as Naomi filled her in on Max's match. Although Rudra pretended to listen to what Naomi said, the reality was that he was shaken up to his core. A big storm was coming into the universe, and everyone needed to prepare for war. And then Max took out a bag of potatoes and threw it at the opponent. Naomi said, nice. Rudra replied absent-mindedly, hey. Are you even listening to me, honey? Naomi said, sounding a little concerned, yeah, I heard that Max used a sack of potatoes, it's dumb, he should have used daggers. Rudra replied, do you even hear yourself? Naomi questioned, as she rolled her eyes. It was only then that Rudra actually began thinking about what she spoke in the last 3 sentences to realize that it was sarcasm. I'm sorry, there is just something weighing on my mind today. Rudra apologized to Naomi, who hugged her husband's arm. The two sat in silence as Naomi did not question Rudra about what was bothering him. The two had a tacit understanding on such topics, as the only thing Naomi did when she knew that Rudra was disturbed was give him a warm shoulder to lean on. You know, Yua and the nanny called today. Apparently Jake grabbed a grape so hard that it burst under his grip strength. gasp, Naomi said with exaggerated emotions. Rudra smiled at this news. If there was one thing that never failed to cheer him up, it was his wife's overacting. She was just too cute sometimes. So what do you think of Max's next match? Rudra asked, taking his mind off things that would be as he wrapped his arm around his wife. I don't know, to be honest. Max is one of the weaker fighters in round of 16, all 15 others are tier 2. Naomi said, sounding a little sad. Tier is not everything. Rudra said with a slight frown, yeah, but his fight is against his friend, Thor's son, it will be tough. Naomi said, oh, haha, nice. Rudra said with a laugh. Rudra did not care if Max won or lost. He was happy with his brother's improvement over the last few months, and that was the only thing that mattered to him. The beauty of a university fight was that it did not have much real consequences to fail. Most students failed to realize this, but these mock fights were actually a great way to train for the real world where there might not be any second chances. Win or lose, Max was going to come out of the fight a better fighter than he went in, and that was a win for Max in Rudra's opinion. Next day, the oval arena was divided into 4 equal parts by a strong barrier. 4 matches would start simultaneously inside the 4 partitions A, B, C, D. When the matches in any block would end, the healer would rush in and give the contestant 5 minutes of healing time. As soon as both Block A and B had a winner and both winners were given their 5 minutes of healing, the barrier between A and B block would be lifted and a new battle would start. A similar process would be seen between winners of C and D to eventually have only 2 winners left amongst the 8 starting participants. The final barrier would also be opened once both winners were given healing, for a final showdown to secure a spot in the finale. After the first finalist was selected, the same procedure would be repeated from scratch to select the second finalist. It was a brutal match style that was going to be extremely harsh on the students as the rounds progressed. Asiva was fighting an orc warrior in Block A, while Max was scheduled to take on Sebastian in Block B. This made it so that should Asiva win her match, she would be facing Max or Sebastian immediately afterwards. All 8 contestants walked out to the roar of the crowd, as the 4 referees explained all the rules to all the contestants once again. Max stared calmly into Sebastian's eyes, who did not back down from his gaze at all. Remember guys, there is a long fight ahead even if you win this one, so conserve your stamina and special attacks, keeping that in mind. The referee advised as both Max and Sebastian nodded. BVEC, alright, you can shake hands now if you want to or return to the marked white spots to start the battle. Max extended his right hand, and Sebastian clapped it with force. May the best man win, good luck, he said, his voice confident and unwavering. May the best man win, good luck. Max replied, his tone slightly heavier than Sebastian as he spoke slowly and clearly. Both fighters began stretching lightly as they walked towards their spots as the referees all looked at each other waiting for all 8 contestants to take the spots so that they could signal the start together at a coordinated time. The start took longer than expected, as the fighters in Block D engaged in an extremely ugly battle of insults as they insulted each other's clans and families for no apparent reason at all. Max found this to be funny, however, the crowd always loved pointless drama as they roared and cheered and lost their minds seeing both parties get so aggressive. After a long wait, both fighters finally took their positions as the referees looked at each other and the referee in Block A opened his palm to count down from 5 to 0 to signal the start. Max glanced at Asiva right before the battle started, and somehow she was looking straight at him as she flashed him a menacing grin. Before Max could make out what that smile meant, the referees shouted together, "Fight!" Immediately Max drew his bloodsucker as all his attention was diverted to the battle at hand. Chapter 108 Max vs Sebastian. You're listening at novelfull.audio. Sebastian and Max both moved cautiously towards each other, swords in hand. There were no sudden movements and no reckless attacks as the first exchange of swords was almost powerless. Cling clang cling, both parties parried each other's sword strikes as they did not even use 50% of their full power, both of them waiting for the opponent to make the first mistake. It was then that Max took the initiative to launch the first attack, as he tried to thrust his sword just as he had done a million times in the training hall before in a movement that came naturally to him now. Sebastian jumped back after turning his body into an awkward reverse C shape as he dodged Max's thrust and countered by trying to go for Max's throat. Max ducked and thrusted his sword towards Sebastian once more, who sidestepped it and landed a kick straight at Max's body which knocked Max down flat. 60 fuck. Max thought as he rolled on the ground, barely dodging the stab attack by Sebastian. 120 pitch. Sebastian stomped hard on Max's gut as a mouthful of saliva escaped Max's throat. It looked like Max was trapped under Sebastian. However, Max smartly changed the crisis into an opportunity as he used the attack Fire Blast. 1200 Sebastian was blasted off Max. However, the attack did less damage than expected, with it not hitting Sebastian dead center and rather missing the mark slightly. Max staggered to his feet, and so did Sebastian, who was swatting off the flames on his body, as the two looked coldly in each other's eyes before unleashing their big moves. Sword intent, wind. Max said as he gripped his shining sword hard and unleashed a strong attack in the form of a wind-tearing wind slash that moved at high speed toward Sebastian. 1000 sword cuts. Sebastian countered with his own big move, as the wind around him turned into small sword surfaces exactly 1000 in number and moved in a haphazard way towards Max. Max's wind slash tore through many of the 1000 sword cuts, as it diminished in power before eventually being blocked out by Sebastian's blade. On the other hand, Max got hit by a lot of Sebastian's 1000 sword cuts, as he found himself unable to dodge small attacks from every direction, as he lost a bit of HP. 30.40.40.30.40.20.30. Although they were all surface level cuts and nothing much, Max felt like he had just run through a bunch of cactus bushes as his entire skin became covered in small bruises. HISSS sunlight hit Max's skin through the small openings created in his fabric as Max's primordial bloodline reacted violently to the sun's presence. Ugh! Max fell to one knee as he felt goosebumps run over his entire body. It had been many weeks since he let his skin be exposed to the sun and had almost forgotten about this powerless sensation that ran over his body whenever he was exposed to the element. Thankfully, the fabric that Severus had gifted him had a self-healing property, as within 5 seconds the small cuts were sewn shut. However, Max was reminded of the cruel reality that he was fighting out in the open, and here the sun was his biggest enemy. Sebastian charged towards Max, the moment Max had fallen to his knees, and although Max recovered right before Sebastian could land his strike, with the speed and momentum that Sebastian had behind his strike, Max was pushed back 5 steps after making the block and knocked a little off balance. This was all the opening that Sebastian needed as he used the attack sword dash. Holding his sword with both his hands tight, Sebastian became a blur in Max's vision as the next instant Max felt a strong pain at the side of his gut. 1750 Max turned to see that his abdomen has been slashed by Sebastian, who was now standing 15 meters behind him, as Max winced and turned, making sure that he was always facing his opponent. At this point Max's HP turned from its once green color to a worrying yellow as he only had about 50% of his HP bar left. Max gritted his teeth as he looked towards the once again cautiously approaching Sebastian, as he felt his consciousness starting to become a bit blurry. Although Max did not realize it himself, his satiety had finally dropped below 60% and he was rapidly losing clarity of thoughts as his subconscious was taking over. Meanwhile Anna was witnessing the fights play out from the audience seats, although she was a little sad that all her friends were still fighting while she was the only one who was knocked out. That thought was only temporary as she quickly became mesmerized at the ongoing fighting. Asaiva was doing really well against the orc warrior. Despite her small frame, she had managed to chip off over 75% of her enemy's HP while only losing 20% of her own, and was very close to victory. She was the fastest damage dealer of all 4 blocks and was most likely going to become the first person to finish her fight and hence gain a longer recovery time as a result. Max versus Sebastian, on the other hand, was the most interesting fight of the group, and one that made any spectator sit at the absolute edge of their seats. It was filled with attacks and counters and moves being unleashed, as despite Max being clearly the weaker opponent of the two, both had nearly equal HP bars 7 minutes into the fight, with Max losing close to 50% of his total HP and Sebastian losing 40% of his. Anna did not know why, but her heart hoped for an underdog victory in Max versus Sebastian as she backed Max to win. However, her rational mind said that it was an highly unlikely outcome. /////A/N. This bonus chapter is sponsored by patron Savanthi. Please thank her in the comments /////. Chapter 109 Max vs Sebastian, 2, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Rudra and Thor both observed the fight of the kids closely from the stands. It was one of the rare occasions when Thor was not shouting like a Viking, but rather calmly observing the fight like a true spectator. In Rudra's point of view, Sebastian had cleaner attacks, a faster speed and superior strength. However, for some reason the kid was holding back his power. While his sword dash attack was too fast for most of the audience to see, Rudra and Thor could see such slow attacks as clear as day, and they noticed straight away that at the critical moment, Sebastian diverted his attack to nick the side of Max's stomach, instead of piercing straight through. Whether it was his friendship that got in his way, or whether it was just his soft nature, Rudra did not know, but what he did know was that unlike Sebastian, who went easy on Max, Max fought like a hungry beast. Max did not fool around with his strikes at all, he went for the critical hits whenever possible and did not give his opponent an inch wherever possible. That's the way Max, when you are the weaker fighter you can't afford a single mistake, Rudra thought, as he gripped the railing tightly, crushing the steel barrier into fine powder. As much as Rudra wanted to have a healthy parent-type mentality that win-lose did not matter, the most important thing was participation. In the end his inbuilt nature defied this. He wanted Max to win, he wanted him to win really badly, hence when he saw Max suffer due to sunlight his heart ached a little, as after 30 seconds he slyly began to manipulate the atmosphere above to create clouds over the oval arena that blocked out the sunlight. Rudra knew very well that this asteroid had no moisture to create clouds naturally, hence this move of his was going to look extremely suspicious. However, he did not care. The least he could do for Max was to level out the playing field so that he did not suffer from some useless allergy of sunlight mid-fight, and besides, with the muscle-headed Viking god of thunder present in the stands, not many would suspect him for the cloud formation. Max's POV, Max saw Sebastian move towards him, as his fighting stance changed naturally. Instead of standing upright with his muscles tightened, Max hunched a little and widened his leg distance to take a slightly wide stance. Dodge. Sebastian swung his sword towards Max's torso, but Max unnaturally bent his body to dodge the attack as he fell flat on his back onto both his arms in a reverse arch position, and then in the most bizarre of attacks used his arm strength to propel himself forward as he hit Sebastian in the chest with his legs. 15 Sebastian took 2 steps back as he looked absolutely winded out as he gasped for air to return to his lungs. Max on the other hand swerved like a damn snake, with his upper body moving in a rhythmic fashion as he attacked Sebastian from weird angles. "The fuck?" Sebastian cursed out loud as he found himself pushed hard to defend and dodge Max's attacks, as he could make no sense of the bizarre attack pattern. As the minutes passed on, Sebastian broke into visible sweat as somehow the tables of him taking on Max had turned completely, with Max turning into a completely different fighter with every passing second. Why can't I see through his attack pattern? What is this crazy speed? No, he is not any faster than before, he has just optimized his attack pattern by premeditation of my next position. His attacks just look faster because he has a better read of my muscle movements, Asmodeus thought, as he analyzed Max. While Asmodeus got a rough idea of Max's shifting attack dynamic, Drax actually understood the full picture. When Max entered his primordial vampire mode and stopped using his active brain too much, he became a much more instinct-driven fighter who was driven by the DNA coded into his ancestry. Max could see a twitch inside Sebastian's muscles and understand how it would affect his movement, and look into his pupil to understand his next attack. These were skills that the Real Max did not possess, and it was the reason why Drax wanted Max to keep his satiety low, because despite the primordial vampire form of Max being a double-edged sword in terms of practicality, in terms of battle skill the primordial vampire Max far surpassed the normal Max. As Max's satiety fell below 59%, he had finally settled into his primordial vampire form completely, as he finally started to get closer and closer to landing a strike on Sebastian's body. Ha 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 ha. Max began laughing maniacally as the speed of his attacks increased. He was enjoying this fight thoroughly. It was the thrill of the hunt that made his blood boil with excitement, and he could smell success close by. Stop laughing, ugly vampire, Asmodeus roared, clearly annoyed at the situation, as he used his Tier 2 skill for the first time ever. Thunder Slash. A thunderous roar sounded throughout the oval arena as Sebastian's sword transformed into a thunderbolt as he slashed it towards Max. Max looked at the attack coming towards him, but instead of dodging he extended his hand towards it as he caught the attack straight into his palm. Splat sizzle BDNVL.M.2300. The attack hacked through Max's palm, halfway into his forearm, as one could literally see Max's left hand being split in half, nearly up till his elbow. Max's hair stood up straight and his HP dropped to a dangerous red level. However, his laughter never diminished. Ha 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 ha. Max twisted his own broken bone and flesh to turn and forced the sword out of Sebastian's hand as he thrusted Bloodsucker straight into Sebastian's gut. 3400. The entire arena was dead silent and focused on the match. Up between Sebastian and Max, as the only sound that echoed throughout was the sound of Max's laughter. A chill went down the spine of every spectator when they noticed the profusely bleeding arm of Max. Spit and drool went down his lips, visibly dripping on the floor under his mask as the whiteness surrounding his blood-red irises slowly began turning red. Even a demon like Asmodeus felt his heart palpitate when he saw Max at this instance, as in this exact moment even an ancient demon like Asmodeus realized whatever creature that Max was way worse than any demon in existence. // This chapter is sponsored by patron Savanthi. Please thank her in the comments for this one. // Chapter 110 Interference and Defeat. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Asmodeus gripped Max's sword arm tight, not allowing Max to pull out the sword he had thrust into his gut as he headbutted Max hard to force a slight separation. Max stumbled back a step, and Asmodeus carefully disengaged a few yards, as there was a 5-meter gap between the duo. Come on Sebastian, if you are my son as you claim, then call upon your inner thunder and crush the enemy. A thunderous voice rolled over the entire arena, as Thor had finally lost his calm witnessing the fight and decided to go back to his Viking ways. The clouds that Rudra had called upon to cover the arena were now sparkling with thunder, as Thor's emotions caused them to react and change into thunderclouds. Asmodeus cursed internally. He had worked really hard to create a bond with Thor, and he just could not afford to disappoint him here and lose his favor. In the grand scheme of things, the outcome of this match did not matter much for Asmodeus, but the favor of Thor did. Damn it, I have no choice but to use it, thought Asmodeus as he began preparing to unleash a forbidden move. Being a high demon in his past life, Asmodeus knew many strong spells at Tier 4 and above. However, the problem was that most of his moves were demonic in nature and could not be revealed in this light faction setting. This, coupled with that fact that they were unusable at Sebastian's Tier 2 strength, greatly limited Asmodeus's options. I never thought that a fresh kid would make me reach into my memory to use Demon Clan attacks, Asmodeus said, as he looked into Max's maniacal eyes and used a forbidden attack. Black thunder. Asmodeus's whole body became covered in dark energy, as his Tier 2 muscles were strained to their limits in trying to create this Tier 3 move. Asmodeus tried to hold on, but with the sword impaled in his stomach and his stamina reserves running low, he could not muster the attack perfectly as it resulted in a slight backlash. A black thunderous energy moved out of his body spreading in all directions, as although it did not concentrate on Max accurately, Max was still inside the blast zone. Max studied the incoming attack closely, as he licked his lips making a slurp sound, as the pool of blood that had formed on his feet as a result of his chopped-off arm, began floating in the air in the form of small bubbles, as Max subconsciously prepared to use blood manipulation. Severus's POV, Severus was enjoying the fight from the stands and felt like an extremely proud dad when he saw Asiva defeat the massive orc, as in one rare moment of displaying emotion, Severus clapped wholeheartedly at her win. Seeing her smile post-victory, Severus wondered if it was worth it having a kid or not, but then sighed and let the thought slip. By as it was destined to bring him nothing but needless pain. While Asiva's victory was clean, the match up between Max and Sebastian on the other hand was much more gruesome and intense. From the moment Max's attack posture changed, Severus understood that his satiety had fallen below 60% and that Max was no longer completely in charge of his own body. Severus did not like this development at all. The vampire king Regus Aurelius could never find out that the child of the prophecy was lurking in the universe and blooming under the St. Maximus shade, lest a calamity befall upon the St. Maximus clan. Severus tried his best to conceal Max's secret time and time again. However, despite how fiercely he tried to protect Max's real identity, Max himself clearly did not take the matter with equal sincerity. Severus watched the match absolutely on the edge, as he began preparing his clan's bloodline attack in case things went even a little south. The Sweeper clan of St. Maximus's bloodline ability was widely misunderstood by the masses. While their advertised ability was to hear even most minute sounds and having super information collection ability, their real ability was to manipulate sound, and as much as Severus hated to do it, when the pool of blood around Max began levitating in bubbles, he unleashed his family's secret attack. Blackout. A high-pitched sound was directed precisely towards Max's ears in such a focused and undetectable manner that not even the two gods present in the arena were able to pick on it. Right before Max was to create a blood shield using his blood manipulation, his ear-drums nearly burst by a high-pitched sound invading it as reflexively Max clutched for his ears, and this cancelled the blood manipulation he was about to perform. The black lightning by Sebastian hence hit Max clean, and his low HP finally hit 0, as Max hit the floor and lost. The entire arena burst into cheers. However, Severus only prayed to the heavens that Rudra would not find him and kill him for this offense that he had just committed. The referee declared Sebastian the winner, and the medical team rushed in to help the wounded Severus, who was surviving on an extremely low 120 HP points. Attaboy! Ha ha ha! Thor said as he cheered Sebastian's win. The thick-head god not finding any faults with the way his son had won. While the entire arena did not care about the winner between Sebastian and Max, as they cheered Sebastian on winning this extremely exciting fight, there were only two people who looked at him with absolute disgust. Unfortunately for Sebastian, one of them was the human god Shikini One Night, and the other was his next opponent, Asiva Nightblade Paradis. Asmodeus had stretched his body to the limits by using the Tier 3 attack with his Tier 2 body, and although the medics were trying their best to heal him, the 5-minute timer was ticking down fast, and from the look in Asiva's eyes, he knew that she was not going to go easy on him at all.